Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to our webcast. Sorry for that pause, but I just had to restart it. I'm Lester Knutsen with Advanced Data Tools, and this is about taking your legacy Informix 4GL code and bringing it into the future. And my subtitle for this, and I just thought about this over lunch today, is I'm so excited because I can finally run 4GL on my Mac. I've been an Apple Mac user for about 10 years, and it didn't dawn on me until today that, this is the first time I've been able to take 22-year-old code and run and compile it on the Mac. And let me get my screen here. So I've been working with Informix since 1983, before it was even Informix. We do a lot of training, a lot of support with Informix products, a lot of development. I've been developing 4GL since about 85, 86, back in version 1.0. And also was one of the founders of the International Informix User Group and the Washington Area Informix User Group. I'm going to do a very quick introduction, and really I want to spend most of today doing, I hate to say demo because it's going to be, this is how I converted some 4GL code and going step by step through the conversion process. Now, I did a dry run of this on Saturday, and it actually took about 2 hours, so we may run a little bit long. I've actually decided to cut out some things and focus in this webcast on just converting the code and not making it pretty. Because after you convert the code, you suddenly look at it and say, oh, wow, it doesn't look that great in a web browser. And then at the end of this webcast, I'm going to save some time for Stacey Osborn from 4Js, who's going to talk about some of their offerings for Informix users. But in short, what I want to do is take a program that looks like this in 4GL screen, and I'm going to upgrade that to a client program running natively on an Apple Mac, and also convert it to a web program running in Safari in a web browser, all without changing any 4GL code. And this is brought to you by the wonders of 4J's Genero, which is a phenomenal product here. Just to give you guys a bit of a background on the setup I have here, I have 2 machines I'm going to be using to do this. This first machine is Bogart. It's a Linux VMware. And the second machine is Milagros, which is, well, I need a new window here, which is a Apple Mac running Darwin. So we're going to go through this whole process from start to finish of taking 4GL code and upgrading it. Now, a little bit of background. I've done this for a couple of clients. It's always been challenging and interesting. I decided to take a bit of code that a program we wrote and we sold, and it was actually the first thing Advanced Data Tools did, called DB Privileges. And it was developed back in '93, and the purpose was to manage Informix database user and group privileges. And it was the first product that had group type privileges for Informix databases. It's kind of fun. You could add users, you could add groups, you can revoke and grant table and database privileges. It was written in Informix 4GL 4.something. It was written to work with Standard Engine, with Online 4 and Turbo version 5, and then with Informix 7.3. And we sold a number of copies of it. It never made me rich, so I couldn't retire from it. And got so busy doing consulting and building systems that in the late 90s, I forget the exact date, we decided to retire it and sort of put it on the shelf. And it was kind of interesting when I decided to do this webcast, I went looking for the source code and it was on tapes, but I don't have a tape drive to read those tapes. This is a key point here I'm trying to make. Make sure you keep your old source code. And I found some floppy disk with the source code on it. And so what we're going to use is an early beta version of the DB privileges code from '93 that I found on a floppy disk. Now, it's going to start out as a 4GL program, and the first thing I'm going to do is show you how we install it and compile it as 4GL. And then we're going to bring it into 4Js. And you notice, in 4Js, you can compile it and run it with no GUI, and it looks exactly like your 4GL program. And there's no difference. These are two different screens, but they look exactly the same. And then we're going to, without changing the code, run it as a client program. This is the client running on Linux. I'll show you the client running on a Mac. You can also run the client on Windows. So you can take your same code. Think about this. I'm taking 22-year-old code here without changing it, running it on a Mac or a Windows or a Linux machine in client server mode. And then you can take that same code without changing it and running it in the web. And we'll go through how to do that, and I'll show you the couple of things you need to set up in 4Js to attach it to a web server and run the same code. And then you can run it on an iPad. Now, in our office here, our wireless is on a different network, so I can't run my iPad on the same network as my servers. But I did this at home last night. This is DB privileges running on an iPad in a web browser. And I didn't quite get this finished, but on the iPad, you can also run native apps. This is 4J's Stores demo running on an iPad. So there's a lot of fun stuff you can do with this. Now, let me dive in, and the rest of this is going to be hands-on, very, very few slides. And I sort of want to describe the steps because I've done this with a couple of clients. First, and really important, is make sure you have the old source code and make sure it compiles. I took code from a client and spent about 2 days trying to figure out, because they couldn't remember what they used to compile what, just trying to figure out what modules went together, what goes with what, and to get all of it to compile. Then the second thing is you need to upgrade the code, and there may be nothing involved here. With DB privileges, because we use the system tables, and the systems tables have changed quite a bit from 7 to version 9, 10, 11, and 12, I had to make a few changes in the old code to get it to work with version 12. And it was primarily the username field went from 8 characters to 32 characters. And table names went from whatever it was, 18 characters to 128 characters. And so if your 4GL does anything with the sys tables, you'll probably have to change that. One of my clients I was working with had a select from sys tables that we had to fix to do that. Then I like to make it simple. I like to create make files. And so the emphasis here is going to be on make files. Now, I'll go ahead and show you this. Genero does have a very fancy graphical environment studio that you can run for building projects and doing things like that. I tend to use the command line and to use makefiles. So the emphasis in this demo is how to do all this with makefiles and from the command line. Okay, so let me start. Oh, one last thing. Just as some background here, 4J's compiler, it uses slightly different extensions for the output. The input is the same. It's a .per for a screen. When you compile it in 4J's, it becomes a 42F as the extension. Your C code, instead of being a .o, becomes a 42M for your modules. If you're using the rapid development system, instead of 4GO, it becomes 42M also. Your C programs become 4G, instead of being 4GEs, become 42Rs, and the same for rapid development system. Basically, 42M is a module, 42R is a runtime, an executable. So let's start at the beginning. And I'm going to log into Bogart. Which is my Linux machine. And the way we used to deliver DB privileges was with a tar file. And I'm just going to untar it. And the way we used to have folks install it was run the script. And I need to say it's in the current directory. And bump. And it says call advanced data tools. And I know why this is there. It's because the compiled database is there and it won't install when that's there. So that is 22-year-old code. I'm really lucky it just compiled just fine. When I've done this with several other systems, I've found problems. I keep forgetting I don't have the current path. So here I'm starting. I'm going to enter the name of the stores database. And the first thing it does is see if there are any users that are in that database that have not been loaded. I can go into users, do a query, and it will show me all the users in that database. Here's Abby, there's Jack, there's James, there's JB. And it tells me what group they belong to and what privileges they have. And so I can take someone like JJ and say, JJ just got moved to a different department and move them, and it will all change. Now, let me get out of this because the reason this is the unchanged code. I did have to make a few changes, and most of the changes were in the globals file. And they all had to do with things like table names. Originally, I had them at 18. User names were 8 characters. All those have changed with version 12. And so by making those few changes and recompiling it, let's do a make. Oh, I did this to test it all out right before the webcast and forgot to clean it up. So let's do a make clean. Now let's do a make. and it recompiles all my 4GL and forms. Let's take a look at users. And just as a quick example, Abby is in the sales group. Look at her permissions. I'm going to update her and change her to the ops group. And it goes through and in the background grants and revokes her privileges to the privileges of the ops group. That was sort of the premise of this. I'd worked on a lot of systems and they all had to have some kind of user interface. So I built this as a simple way of adding and managing users. You could do groups. Groups you might think of, I think if I had to rename it today, it would be templates, because what the groups were, and in this simple example, I have a dev group, a manufacturing group, an ops group, and a sales group, 4 groups. And each group has a different set of privileges. You can see on the customer table, the ops group can do everything: select, insert, update, delete. The manufacturing group can only do select and insert. The dev group can only do select. You don't want your developers doing anything on a production system, just as an example. Now, if I wanted to add a new person to the development group, I would just go to members and say, okay, let's add new, whoops, can't have a space there. I'll call it new mem, hit escape, and I've just added a new member to the development group. So if I exit out of groups and go back to users and do a query for new, I'll see that new member I just added is there with the permissions of the development group. That was the whole basis of this program. It was kind of interesting. Like I said, it was pretty active from 93 to about 97, 98. I did a Google recently because I'd sort of packed everything away about it. And I found on a website, Informix.com.ua, an old description of DB privileges. This was a blast from the past to see this up there and running. Now, just to double check, last time I did a webcast, we had people say that I was talking too fast and the screen wasn't responding. If you notice it getting delayed, let me know, because I don't want to get ahead of myself here in talking. And I'm excited about this, so I have a lot to cover, and that's part of what I want to do. So that's DB privileges, and that's the 4GL version. Now, let's look at the 4J's version. It won't run, and that's because I haven't set my environment yet. The first thing you have to do, and when you get Genero, there is an environment file that they set up for you. You have to run that to set up your environment. And it's pretty complex because there's a lot of things in it. Thankfully, they give you this file when you install the software. So all you have to do is run it. So now I can run DB privilege with no GUI, and it looks exactly the same as my 4GL that we were looking at before. No difference. And this is part of what's so great about this. You can take your code over and compile it with no difference. Let me show you the compile process, and I'm going to clean up the code. So all I have is the 4GL code and a few helper scripts. I tend to use makefile, so I'm going to hit make and just do a compile, and that recompiles the whole product. And to go back to the slides for a minute, your screens in 4GL, you use form 4GL. In 4Js, you use FGL form. Same screen, and it gives you a different output for the runtime. It's very simple. So all I had to do in my makefile was add a rule to take a .per and compile it with FGL FORM. Same thing with messages. Instead of make message, there's an FGL make message. If you're using the P code, Informix Rapid Development System P code, you would compile modules with FGL PC. In 4Js, there's one way of compiling FGL comp, and that is compiling a module. If you're using the P code, the way you would build a program is you would take all the modules and cat them together. With 4Js, you use FGL link -O with the name of the program you want it all to link into with the 42R extension, and then list all the modules. If you're using the C compiler, and remember 4GL has both the Rapid Development System, which is P code, and then the C compiler, which creates executables. With the C compiler, you would compile it with C4GL -C. With 4Js, it's FGL comp module. And then to link them in the C code, you'd say C4GL -O, the name of the output program, and link all your executables. 4Js, it's FGL link. It's pretty straightforward to do. And so what I did in my makefile was I just added a line saying 42R is my executable, 42F are my screens, and make all is going to compile my executable, my screens, and my global. And then I tell it my modules are the different modules I have. And this is just a matter of taking a make file that I'd used with 4GL and changing the extensions from a .o to a 42M. And then in my make file, I added the rules. To compile a form, a PER becomes a 42F, and this is how you compile it. This is what your globals are. This is how to compile, how to link a program, and then this is how to compile a module. So if you look at my make file, let's just go to the top. I actually have the 4GL versions of this make file here. And I can switch back and forth by just changing what all points to. So I could change it from all being 42R and 42F to all being C4GL, and it would compile the 4GL, Informix 4GL versions of that. I define my code, I define my forms, I define my globals, and I define all the modules. And again, I have it's the same modules with different extensions for 4GL and for Genero. And then I go through the makefile rules. I put in a line telling me my 42Ms come here and my 42Fs come here. And as I go through this, at the very end, I added in the new rules for Genero. This is how you compile the forms, and this is how you compile the programs. So I've already done a make, so everything's up to date. I've run it with no GUI, so we're in good shape. So now comes the fun part. Let's take that same code without changing it and run it in a GUI. And I'm going to do it a couple of different ways. The first thing I'm going to do is flip over here to my VM session. And I should exit out of this. I meant to exit out of that because I just recompiled everything underneath it. So I'm in a Linux desktop here. And I want to show you the 4GL program running in a Linux desktop. I can do the no run no GUI, and I get the run no GUI right here. I can do the run with a GUI. And there's a prompt there saying it's trying to connect to the GUI. Now, what Genero does is they use a program, I like to call it CDC, that runs in the background. You have to start it. And once you start that, it sort of provides the graphical interface on the client for the 4GL program. So I started the GUI, I give it the name of the database, say OK, and you notice the difference. The menu is here on the right side. If I go into users, this is with no code change. It doesn't look that pretty. And that's why I decided making it pretty is going to be a separate webcast in the future. I'm using, by default, it uses proportional fonts. And so my text up here sort of runs together, like index is not over index. Index should be this over this column here, but because that's a proportional font, it's not over that. That's all stuff you can fix and add easily. But I wanted to show you what it looks like without making any changes. We'll do how to fix it and make it pretty in the future. You can add logos, you can add pictures, you can add web services, you could add maps, you can do all kinds of beautiful, wonderful stuff with it. But it works in client-server mode. And so I'm looking at my users, I'm seeing what permissions they have. If I want to update John, and let's make him part of the sales group and hit OK here. Now he's part of the sales group and he's got the privileges of the sales group. If I want to update him and make him part of the ops group, I hit OK. And now he's part of the ops group. And he has all the privileges to update and delete everything. So this is very cool. And there was no, it's running the same 4GL that I was running with the no GUI. The only difference is I am running the CDC, which is this desktop client that sort of takes that 4GL runtime and translates it into something useful that I can see on my screen. And you can have some of your users running graphical mode and some running command line mode using the exact same code. I can also then take that code and by updating a couple of files, and I'm going to show you the key one. And in my VMware, I'm running the IBM version of Genero. Let's see. I don't want to do that. I want to CD to that. Oh, missed out a directory there. So this is a directory where I tell it sort of the commands to web enable my 4GL. And what I wanted to show you was this one file for DB privileges. Basically, I tell it, here's the path to where the executables are. Here's the executable you run. And this tells the 4J's web server what to run and where to run it. And that's all I have to do. And now I can come over here and I'm running the same program in a web browser. Pretty cool, huh? And so I can do an update here and go through and look at what was the new user we added over there. Let's just see if we can find that. Yeah, new member. And there's a new member that we added in the screen in the character mode version of the program, and it's showing up in the graphics mode version of the program on the web. So that's pretty straightforward. And it's all from the same code directory, because this is the directory where I told it to go get my 4GL code. And it's all the same code that's running whether I run GUI, no GUI, or web. So the next thing I want to show you is client server, real client server, because so far I've been running it all on Bogart, which is my Linux VM server. So I want to jump back to Milagros, which is the name of my Mac. And let's see where Milagros is. Well, we'll get out of this directory. It'll take me back to Milagros. So on Milagros, I have the 4GL code. This is the local map. Darwin means it's the Mac version of Unix. For those of you who don't know, one of the reasons I like Macs is they run Unix. You get your command line, your Corn shell with a Mac, and I have 3 Macs on my desktop here, and I can spend all day working with them. Informix runs on the Mac. Got to set the environment file, though, for it to run. Now DB Access will run. So I can use DB Access. I can connect up to any number of my database servers and different machines. And I can see that same stores database we were looking at, which is actually on Bogart. And let's just go in and do a new select star from sys users, and you'll see all the users that were out there on, there's our new member on the Mac. And if you go to the info, let's pick the customer table and go to privileges, you'll see all the privileges that we were setting in those two programs. So that database is on Bogart, but my code is right here locally on the Mac. And I'm going to do the make clean. So I've just cleaned up all the executable codes. This is what I love. This is actually, this made my day when it was funny. I've done this several times, and it wasn't until lunchtime today I was just thinking about it. I've always wanted to do make on a Mac and compile 4GL code. Whoops, forgot another environment. I have an environment file for Genero, and boom, I've got my Genero code compiled. So now I can run, let's try the no GUI version first. So from the command line on a Mac, you probably wouldn't really want to do this. If you're going to be on a Mac, you'd probably want to run the GUI version. But I just wanted to show you, I'm running a 4GL program from the command line on a Mac. Think of this, all your developers can do their command line testing on their desktops this way. Now, let's run the GUI version. Again, it's the exact same code. Let me actually show you what I'm doing. All I'm doing is unsetting FGL UI, which is a environment variable that says don't run the non-GUI, setting up where the FGL server, that's where the GDC is running. And that's a good question, is the GDC running on this machine? Yep, it's running on this machine. That's the one thing you have to start before you can run the GUI, is to start the GDC, which is a 4Js product that just sits there and runs in the background and allows you to connect to. So here I'm telling it to connect to the GDC on the local host and then to run DB privilege. And let's see. There. And I see the problem, I already had it running. So I'm running two versions of it. Let me exit out of this one. Okay. So let's just close out a bunch of windows here, and so you guys can see that. Okay. Native client server program running on the Mac. Go into users, hit query, hit OK, next, 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 next. I can see my users and see what's going on. I can add a user, and let me think of one I haven't added. New 45, new 45. We're just going to add them. And once I've added them, by default, they have no privileges. So I'm going to add them to the sales group and hit OK. And it goes out and gives them all the privileges of the sales group. And again, so this is again, it's not pretty because I haven't made any of the code changes to make it pretty. But I wanted to show you what it looks like as plain and simple 4GL code with no changes. Running client server on the Mac. I tell you, this made my day when I've been so busy working on this and a couple of other client stuff. It wasn't really till lunch today I said, wow, I'm doing something I wanted to do for 10 years by doing this. And so I can exit out of it right now. So let me see what else I wanted to cover. Some of the challenges. I forgot about this. The big challenge after you found your code, and that's actually, I think, the first challenge when you upgrade code, is making sure you have all the code. And, you know, I've been on site for people sort of say, oh, we can't find the code. What are you going to do about it? I can't make code appear from magic. I'm not a magician. I'm a programmer. And I can rewrite code from specs, but if you don't have the code, and that's probably the biggest challenge, the source code, and if it doesn't compile right the original way, then you're going to have problems. Once you've got it to compile right, new compilers, and 4Js is a new compiler, even the new 4GL and the C compilers are a bit more strict. They require more precise code. And so I'm going to go through some of the problems I've found doing this at a couple of client sites. This is just scratching the surface of problems. One of them was missing commas in perform screens. This blew my mind. I actually had done this. I saw this first at a client site, and then when I did DB privileges, I was like, wow, I actually had done that. I had left a comma out of a perform screen. In the attributes section, I had two attributes, no comma. The old compiler, it worked. The new compiler, it does not work. Second problem I've seen at a client site was screen array sizes not matching. And that is, they would have a screen array of 10 fields. And what they had a habit of doing, and it seemed to work in the old 4GL, was the 10th field would be one character smaller. I don't know why. It would not compile with the new 4GL. Another problem they had was they had the attribute word wrap on a field that was too small to word wrap, and it just wouldn't compile. Those were easy to fix. The harder ones are functions and passing and returning values. The old code, and this is how bugs got into old code that you and I would, you know, take days to find and not find until somebody ran something and something didn't work. Old code was more forgiving on passing values between functions and returning values. New compilers are very strict, and I think it's really a good test just to upgrade your 4GL just to see does your code pass this new strictness test. If the function returns an unexpected number of values, that's going to be a problem. Back in 4.0, in 93, I could do it, and I had clients. I worked on some old code where they had functions that returned values, but they didn't check them. They didn't even. It was just a call function. The function returned value. I don't know what happened to that value. This is how things get hacked, by the way, and that's why compilers have gotten much more strict about it. One client I worked with had functions calling parameters, but there's nothing in the function that was expecting a parameter. And it worked in the old code. It does not work in the new code. They also had functions being called with one value where two were defined, and they should have passed two values. Another one that was really difficult was they had a function with multiple return statements, and each return statement in that function, it was a big if this, do this, then return, and if this, do this, then return. Each return statement returned a different number of values. Worked in the old code, doesn't work in new code. And some of this, this is not just Genero. Genero is very strict on this, but also the newer 4GL. So what I would always recommend you do is take your old code, compile it with the newer 4GL first, and then bring it over to Genero and compile it, and it should be the key. The other big challenge in doing this is what I call the GUI paradigm shift. Well, first of all, the web is very challenging. It's a whole new environment. Our old green screen code looks boring. And you're going to want to make your screens more enlivened. You're going to want to deal with proportional space fonts. And there are two ways to deal with this. Let me jump back here to where did my screen go? Oops, that's not the one I wanted. I wanted this one. Well, this is I'll show you an example. You can, in Genero, set up a parameter that says you use a fixed font. And so you won't get this kind of, these titles all moving to the left here. And it will use a fixed font, and so the titles will spread out correctly. That's a very simple fix to do in Genero. Function keys. They can be a real challenge on key clauses, particularly in the web, because function keys are term cap driven, and your web browser doesn't know about term cap. And so I worked with a client, and that was actually a showstopper. They had so much stuff in function keys, we had to redefine. And the nice way of redefining it is this menu here on the right. You can add some of the things you do function keys to this menu here on the right in Genero. And that's just, I think, the nicest and simplest way to do it. But there's a lot of old 4GL code that was very fast data entry, and everything was function key driven, and no help, no menus, no prompts. You had to be sort of like a super somebody to understand how that program worked. It worked great if you were data entry for 8 hours a day on the same screen. You got to know it really well that way. So that is some of the challenges of converting. The point, though, is it works. The only code changes I made were users and tables and databases to increase the size to make them fit with Informix version 12, because the number of spaces of a user and table and database have all changed. With other clients, the only real change I've had to work on is dealing with function keys and proportional spacing, and then also brightening up your screens. Now, questions. I actually am pretty pleased. I've got this down to 251. What I'm going to do is ask you to send your questions to me, just to keep the time down, and I want to save time here for Stacey. So Stacey, if you could start getting ready, I'm going to pass control over to you in just a minute. But before I do that, I want to tell you guys about two other things. So Stacey's next, but hang on just a minute. Our next webcast, Art Cagle is going to do a webcast on Informix storage and RAID 5. This is called the No RAID 5 webcast, October 20th at 2 p.m. We're kind of really excited about this. Art and I just taught an advanced course last month, and he did a session in the advanced course on this, and I said, Art, you need to do a webcast to share that with everybody, because we keep running into this RAID 5 issue and how to do Informix storage, and so he's going to share with you his best practices on that. Second thing is I have one more course we're going to be teaching this year. We have taught more people this year than any other year in the past, and the really fun part is that most of them have been Oracle DBAs. I have probably taught 18, 19 Oracle DBAs how to manage Informix, and they're all from companies that have just gotten Informix and they suddenly realize it's not Oracle and they need to get trained. We have a course coming up for new DBAs October 12th. I'll be teaching it. It's going to be exciting. You can take it over the web. We use WebEx. We also give you a training system to log into to actually do the exercises. Every student gets their own machine. It's not a virtual machine. And then advanced data tools, just to say a little bit more. We focus on Informix DBA support. We have tools to monitor your database, to help you with performance tuning, consulting, and development, and we'll be glad to help. So let me turn it over now to Stacey, and this is going to take a minute if you guys can bear with us. Stacey, I'm going to change you to be the presenter.
Okay. Can everybody hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Perfect.
And I've lost my mouse, but hang on just a minute. That's why. Okay. Now you should be able to share your desktop, Stacey.
Okay, just one moment. Okay. So you're seeing a bunch of slides right now, but due to time constraints, Lester did such a wonderful job on covering many of the slides that I want to. So I'm actually going to do my last slides first. So for any of you who have ever gone to a restaurant and ordered the dessert before your entree, this is sort of what we're going to do for today. So out there, we are finding that the 4 promos that 4Js is offering folks, literally we find most folks are falling into one of these 4 areas. The first one is, like Lester showed, modernizing the I4GL applications with Genero Enterprise Mobile 2.5. If that is your project, then we have a promo that's for you. And please note, these promos that are on the screen for you will be actually through Lester and Advanced Data Tools. They are a primary premier partner with 4Js, and so the pricing will not come from 4Js directly. I will help facilitate that if you're interested. But ultimately, all pricing and all details will come through Advanced Data Tools. So if you're looking to modernize your I4GL applications, then you will want to go ahead and repurpose using your 4GL renewal funds. You will receive a dollar for dollar credit. And we'll talk more specifically on how that takes place. The second project, if you currently own IBM Genero, and you want to flip that to 4J's Genero 2.5, you can do so at the grand cost of free. Yes, free. Simply call me or call Lester, and we will get you started. The third project is if you are a 4J's customer, and you may have been a customer of ours for 10, 13, 15 years, and you are still developing on BDS 2E or BDS, have no fear. We can get you over to Genero 2.5 as well. You can actually trade in your licenses. Believe it or not, something that you may have purchased 10 years ago still has value. So we will take what value it is, and we'll apply a dollar for dollar credit towards updating to Genero 2.5. And last but not least, we have some customers, existing 4J's customers, that have lapsed in maintenance. We'll work with you through Advanced Data Tools to true up and co-term your existing expired licenses so that you move to Genero 2.5, and when 3.0 is due to be released in December, you will actually be able to go to 3.0 at absolutely zero cost. So you can buy one and get one free maintenance. It's an amnesty program running through the end of this year. For those of you that are interested in 3.0 being released in December, if you have a current maintenance contract with us, absolutely you will receive that benefit of going to 3.0. So the next slide actually talks about how to get started. Lester offered, if you have any questions, to contact him. That is your first and foremost opportunity to get the best results, best questions or answers to your questions. If you want to do some more investigation on your own, you can take a look at these links, and it will help you get started. Again, if you have any information or you have questions, go to info@advanceddatatools.com. And from what I understand, with Lester, Tom, Mike, and the folks at Advanced Data Tools, that is distributed to a number of folks over there. So you're guaranteed to have your answers questioned, or you can go ahead and email me at smosborn@4js.com, and I will loop back in with Lester and folks at Advanced Data Tools. Again, if you want an evaluation license, you can go ahead and contact Lester, or you can contact myself, and we will make sure that we get that for you. The evaluation license is a full developer license that has the compiler and the debugger in that. Now, that is free, 30-day, no obligation license for you. Okay, so for those of you that would like to stay on for an additional 10 more minutes, we're just going to go over a few slides with you. Now, the gentleman that I actually have with me is Ron Guillet, and he is the support manager. He's the services and support manager here at 4J's, and he's been with 4J's 15 plus years. In fact, all of our folks here on the help desk at 4J's have been here for a minimum of 10 years. So you're going to find that at Advanced Data Tools, you have a very solid infrastructure of folks that are very capable of helping you migrate to Genero. And the same here at 4J's. So you are dealing with two companies that are very capable in helping you to do modernize your 4GL efforts. So just a quick outline. I'm not going to read it through every single one of these, but some points I want to point out on this particular slide are 3 migration steps. Lester showed you the first of 3, which is the straight recompile in a non-traditional method using TUI or GUI. What is the IBM and the 4J's relationship? We have actually been technical business partners for the last 20 plus years on an international level. In July, IBM decided that they were going to hand over the reins of IBM Genero simply because 4Js was doing such a great job in providing the support to the customers that they thought that it was best to just go to 4Js directly. And in doing so, we still have Sean Moe and Jeff Treese at IBM that are very supportive and actually choose 4Js as the preferred modernization tool. With that, we have Lester and Advanced Data Tools that is an IBM channel partner as well as a direct partner with 4Js in helping to facilitate those who want to migrate to Genero Enterprise. So a little bit about 4Js. You can read the slide yourself, but a couple things I want to point out is we've sold over 22 million licenses, and as I stated before, all of our U.S. technical support engineers in Dallas, Texas have a minimum of 11 plus years of employment with 4Js, not contractors. They are employed with 4Js and an average 20 years of Informix 4GL experience. So here's the question. Why make changes to I4GL applications? We agree. As Lester demonstrated, stick with the coding structure that is solid, your 4GL code. And it's timeless. As Lester demonstrated, you can go back 22 years on code and it still works. He pulled it out of nowhere and it still is proven. So why change it? The only thing we want to do is help you to modernize your apps driven by your user demands or your customer demands. This is Genero Enterprise. What is Genero Enterprise? It basically is a set of features. And here's what actually, whenever folks talk about Genero Enterprise 2.5, Genero Enterprise 3.0, here are the components that make up that suite of products. You have the BDL, that's what we call our programming language, and within that BDL is a compiler and the runtime system. Studio. Lester actually demonstrated this. This is our graphical integrated development environment. He demonstrated some cool features of Studio. Like he said, there's many more, but he did demonstrate some features. The web service API, the application server, you can choose the desktop client or the web client, and also two other really cool features, the report writer and Genero Mobile. First and foremost with BDL, which again is our language that also has a debugger and the compiler in it. As you can see, there are many great features about that, but some things to point out is that Informix, it's 4GL backwards compatible, meaning that your legacy code, screens, and reports can be used as a base. It is a superset of I4GL. It's very easy to pick up for those that have already programmed with Informix. It is a full language. Our Genero BDL is a full language that doesn't depend on I4GL as a requirement. What that means is that this also can be used as a brand new application or to write brand new modules to complement your legacy ones. So it is truly a recompiler as well as a rapid application development tool. And you can code manually or you can use a code generator. We have a couple screenshots here, and I would actually like to ask Laurent to go ahead and pinpoint out some of the things that we're seeing here on the screenshot. Laurent?
Laurent's on twice. I'm going to unmute both of them.
Okay.
And I hope one of them is right.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Laurent.
Okay, perfect. I shared the link with one of my coworkers, so that's why you see me twice, I guess.
Okay, no problem.
All right, so Yeah, this slide just shows some quick screenshot on what Genero Studio can do. As Stacey was mentioning, you can manually use and recompile and do everything from a VI, from a command line, like Lester's demonstrated. Or if you have new developers, or you want to get into an environment, development environment that's more up to date with some of the more recent technologies or what other languages provide, you can use Studio. It can be configured into a standalone mode where you can compile and do everything on your laptop or on your machine. It also has a client-server mode, where you're using the GUI on the client side, but you can still remote compile, remote debug, remote test on a Linux server, on an AIX server, for example. And so this is just highlighting some features inside of Studio. So project manager, code editor, it's got a form designer. There is a config manager that allows you to switch if you want to compare what a desktop look and feel compares versus a web look and feel compares to. You can do that. So everything that a graphical ID would provide, you get the Studio for the Genero BDL. Next slide, please. Stacey, can you move to the next slide?
I did.
Oh, okay. Well, you can move to the next slide. That's the screen designer. So that's a report designer. So I guess as part of Lester's demonstration, there was no reports. I believe that later on in a few slides, there'll be some dedicated slides just to reports, but it's kind of the same idea than for screens. Genero would allow you to use legacy reports just as is. Then you have what we call a legacy mode or traditional mode that allows you to take all those reports as is and insert them, or use our report writer to just stream those reports or publish those reports just as is. And then you can actually, the same you would do for screens, you can redesign all your reports using the Genero report designer or the Genero report writer. Yeah. So Genero Studio also comes with a business application modeling feature, which is you can choose to continue to manually code your application, maintain your applications, write complete new code with using the Genero language, but we also provide a way to generate code. And that's kind of, it has kind of a modeling, doing modeling application through diagrams, and then get some BDL Genero code generated. For those of you that might have used some generator in the past, 4gen or some other tools, that might be a model that you could want to explore, and Genero provides you that type of functionality as well. Next. So yeah, so Genero is an open architecture. So this is what we've been doing for so long with so much success. The right ones deploy anywhere. That would apply a lot for a lot of our customers that are ISVs or resellers, where once you have your code that has been compiled, the code can be database agnostic, client agnostic, or operating system agnostic. So the dependency on the database as well as the operating system goes with the runtime system. So once you have installed the Genero runtime, as well as using the correct database driver for it, from that point on, your code can just be reused into various type of environments. So again, for an ISV, it's very interesting because you can use the same code from Windows to Linux to Mac, or from database A to database B, and as well as from a desktop client going to a web client. So again, the idea is what Lester said in the beginning, and Stacey said it as well, is reuse and focus on your legacy business logic or your own core business logic, which is really what's important to your business. And then Genero will adapt based on the requirements fairly easily. So we load DLLs at runtime that you can use, XML and JSON for web services, utility, mathematics. We also have custom C or Java functions, so all of your legacy C functions can be reused and as part of the runtime system. So if you have a lot of legacy C, you can still reuse them with Genero. No problem. You don't have to rewrite them in Genero language at all. And we also have a Java bridge. So if you have some specific utility, or you want to bridge over some specific Java utility libraries, you can use them inside of Genero. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Next slide. Web services. So we support all types of web services, RPC, dark style, SOAP, but as well as RESTful type of services. So we extended the language to have a web services API, allowing you to write some nice client web service code or consumer type of web services, as well as provider type of web services or web services server, so to speak. And I guess that's it. We've been doing this for 12 years, so it's been a very good success for us, the web services API. So we kind of been through this as well, because that's what Lester showed. So I'm not. So we support ASCII as is, and then So I don't want to talk too much more about that. Next slide. So. So where's the slide with the steps, the migration steps? I think that's probably a good.
Yeah, let's move.
To that one, because I think it's really an important one.
Correct.
If it's somewhere.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so that's what Lester showed. So I'm not going to go too much into this. Just know that we have a traditional mode as well that you can use. That makes things even really pretty straightforward to run as is, as part of the migration path. I talked about the report, and that the legacy engine would still work as is, so you don't have to touch your reports as well. So that's it. And as Lester showed it, in TUI it works just as is without any changes or very minimum changes. And then as soon as you switch to GUI, it will run. The code will be functionally sound. The application will be working, but of course the look and feel will be pretty odd. So next slide. So what Genero provides, or 4Js has been providing, is kind of a migrate at your own pace type. So there's kind of a second and a third step that I can kind of categorize. Step 2 would be to modify the screens only. So that means that all your business logic, all your 4GL don't have to change at all. We will guarantee that it will work just as is. And then you'd modify the screens to add some of the widgets that any GUI application would provide. So toolbars, top menus, tables, some containers, drop boxes, images. And so again, this like more than 90% of the work easy will be done on the PR files, on the screens, and really very minimum to the 4DL side. So that will allow you to get something really nice looking very quickly, because we're only talking about the screen side of things that need to be changed. So that's step 2. So this kind of gives you some ideas of how it can look like. But let's talk about step 3. Again, we talked about Genero being a superset of Informix 4GL, and being a full language with full UI capabilities as part of what it provides. So now, if you want to take it to the next step and you want to adapt your business logic to take advantage of some of the new design or the advanced UI capabilities that Genero provides. So what we call multiple dialogues or multi-focus. So the ability of having constructs and display arrays and inputs to all have focus at the same time, because with Informix 4GL, only one dialog can have the focus at one single point of time. So you can do this kind of things with Genero, but indeed it will require more advanced programming to achieve that. So again, you can still leave your legacy code just as is, and you can add some modules or modify some of the modules to just take advantage of that. Just know that it's not only screens, it's 4GL as well. Drag and drop, the ability to drag and drop between a display array and another, and from one array to another, or to different parts of the application. Web components, which is there might be some screenshots right after that, but web components pretty much after all the widgets and containers that Genero provides. Web components gives you the ability to create a container inside of your 4GL application, of your 4GL screen, and inside of that 4GL screen container, I'm sorry, you can actually insert HTML and CSS and JavaScript code to do some more advanced type of UI. So if you can just switch to the next slide, Stacey. So that's kind of an example of on the left side you can see an input with a classical Genero screen with buttons, and then on the right side you have actually a container with an image, but it's a web component as well that allows you to well, I think this one's actually just a Google Map web service, but it kind of gives you an idea of having control of something from the Genero program and kind of having some third-party, here it's Google Images or Google Map web services to refresh at the same time. So next slide. So here you can see here that's kind of the container that contains JavaScript type of charting API or web component. So inside of the container, the object, the charting object, is not Genero native. It is a third party that's been inserted into the application. So that allows you to even go further into what one can do in terms of UI capabilities. And on the right side, you can see drag and drop. So that's pretty much it. If you can just go back to the web client, just going to address the web client. Lester was just saying that desktop, you go from desktop to web. So the idea with the web client is that over the years, we've guaranteed better and better compatibility or look and feel and no differences between the desktop clients and the web client. And so it is true that it's a little bit more involved, but it's also true that you can kind of split the team between your 4GLers and people that would know HTML or web programmers, where you can have part of your team focus on the 4GL and some people also focus on the customization and the look and feel of your application using web technologies. And so by doing so, you can really achieve more flexibility and more advanced UI using the web. So and just if you are interested as well, the version 3 of Genero that will be in early access program and that will be available at the end of the year will come with our latest version of our Genero web client that is really the latest generation in terms of customization and look and feel. And so if you are interested in going to web with a 4GL application, I would certainly take a look at our new Genero web client.
Thank you so much, Laurent. I really appreciate that. Lester, we here at 4Js really appreciate your support and the opportunity to be a part of your webinar today. If anyone has any questions for Stacey or Laurent, you can direct them to smosborn@4js.com, or Lester, they can filter them through you.
Excellent. Thank you, Stacey, and thank you, Laurent. And for those of you here in the Washington area, Informix user group area, I know James and Tom have been talking about having Stacey and Laurent come up at our next meeting and do a more in-depth kind of demo of this. So we look forward to that. And like I said, I'm excited about this. I'm planning, I think we'll probably do a webcast on step 2, which is how to make the screens pretty sometime in the near future. And with that, let me switch back to my slides here. And just say thank you all for attending this webcast. It has been recorded, and we'll try and get the recording up in about 2 or 3 days. And look forward to having you on our next webcast where Art will talk about storage and RAID 5. Have a good day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.